Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In the last part of this series, you saw the difference between the normal Kubernetes cluster and the preemptible Kubernetes cluster on GCP. In this part, I am going to show you how to create and configure the Kubernetes cluster, and also I will show you how to assign static IPs to the nodes. Okay, then let's get started. The first thing, once you create a Google account, Google GCP account, the first default will get a default project, but in this video I'm going to create a new project, and I will just give the name as YouTube demo and then create. And it takes some time, maybe it takes 1 or 2 minutes to create. I'll just quickly forward it. And yeah, it's created. The project is created now. It is YouTube demo. Now then from on the top menu you can just click on this and you can just select the YouTube demo. So once this is the dashboard, right? So once you go to this menu, then you can just scroll down a little bit and you see the Kubernetes engine. Then you can just pin it for easy usage, and then you can go to clusters. Under cluster you will get an option as in create cluster, and you gave it a name as YouTube demo k8s cluster. Okay, and there are two zone types. There one is zonal and regional. Zonal is specific to a location. Regional is a region, because in one region you can have multiple zone. So we don't want to create so many nodes, so we click on zonal, and you just select whichever is the nearest one, the region. So I go with Europe North 1A, and then let the default master version be same, and 3 nodes, because as I explained in the last video, 3 is the minimum you should be creating. And then go to more option, because last time I explained you, last video I explained you have to create a preemptible nodes to reduce your cost. So this is where you have to just give the pool name, that it be default pool. And if you scroll down here, it should be a general purpose, and as well as the machine type will be F1 micro, because you get a 1 CPU and 614 MB of RAM. And make sure you reduce the size to 10 GB, because the cost for the hard disk is little more, because we are not going to use 100 GB anyways. We are just going to pull 3 or maximum 3 images, so it doesn't make sense to use 100 GB of memory. So we just reduce to 10. And here is what you have to click on, this button, enable preemptible nodes. This is where the cost of the VMs get reduced by half. Okay, and you can leave it as it is and just click on save. Here you should make sure everything is correct, and then just come and create. Once you click on create, it takes a couple of minutes to spin up the nodes, and once it's ready we'll be back. So now the cluster is created and you can see the status is running. So before we connect, let me tell you what and all configuration you have to change, because as you know, the cluster size is 3 core and RAM is not even 3 GB, right? So we don't want to run the unwanted things for us. So just go to the cluster and click on edit, and once you scroll down you see there is a stack driver is enabled. What does it mean? Basically there is a for GCP there is a default logging mechanism that they call as a stack driver. Basically it sends some information regarding your cluster, like what is the cluster memory and what is the CPU and how much CPU it is taking for a particular node respectively, and stuff like that. So we don't want that for now, because we will see in the future how to do that, and we don't want monitoring as well. So if you scroll down, you can just click on save. Now what does it do? It goes to the cluster and it just removes all the nodes related to the stack driver. Okay, so let's go back, and yeah, now I will show you how to connect to the cluster. So just click on connect, and you just copy this command to get the kubectl configuration file. So there should be already a gcloud installed in your machine and configured. You should be already be logged into that gcloud. So just paste that and click enter, then it will fetch and kubectl is configured. So to check if everything is working fine, just enter kubectl get parse all namespaces, right? So you should be able to see all the namespaces, means all the pods running in your cluster. So these are the pods are running. So congratulations, and now your cluster is up and running. Now let's go to the next step, that is basically let me show you what and all VMs has been created, right? So let's go to compute engine. So under VM instances, you will be able to see there are three VMs are running. Okay, so as I explained you already, as I explained you earlier, these VMs are will be exist for just 24 hours. Then a new VM gets created. When a new VM gets created, what does it mean? The internal IP changes as well as the external IP changes, because the external IP is a dynamic IP. Whenever this VM is dropped, the IP is also released. You cannot hold that IP. So the idea behind the cheap cluster is, or the affordable cluster is, we don't want to create a static load balancer because that costs more. We wanted to use this IP to access the application. So we have to make sure this IP is a static IP instead of the dynamic IP, right? So just to show you, we can just go to external IP and you will see there are three dynamic IPs, right? So we wanted to make it as a static, but if you click on static it will not work, by the way. So there's a very good project, but .t, it's called kubeip. What does it do? It monitors your node whenever there's a change in the node, either by update or add. It tries to allocate a static IP for that node instead of a dynamic IP. Okay, so I will show you, don't worry, I will show you how to do that. This is very 4 or 5 steps you have to take care. So I will put that in my blog as well as in the comment below, so you can just copy paste it. So let's get started. So I have just prepared this. So the first thing is to put the project ID. So you go back and then just click on this and you will get a project ID here. Just copy this, paste, and your cluster name, and we have just pinned it. So this is the, just go to cluster and then copy this cluster name, and this was default poll, right? Because we didn't change the name. Now that is good. Now we go back and here you should be careful that you should be using a Linux terminal, and in my case I'm just using Git. Before we execute this command, let's clone the kubeip repo. So once you clone the kubeip, just open the bash here itself. So we need some files from there. So let's copy the commands now from there to here, execute, and then again now let's try to create a service account. So what we're trying to do here is basically we are trying to create a user called kubeip and assigning a roles such a way it can change the compute engine's IPs, right? So now we created it. So let's assign a role to that. And then we just add a policy to that. And then we create a key so that we give that key to the Kubernetes cluster so it can access from Kubernetes cluster the GCP. So we are telling create a key and the file name is key.json. So if you go back to the Explorer, so you will see the key.json has been created now. So now you go back to the command and we have already done this. You know to do it because you already got the cluster kubectl, so you don't need to worry about it. Now the step is to create the secret. As I told, we have to put the key.json in the Kubernetes cluster and the namespace is under kube system. So we put that. Okay, now we create a role binding to that and make sure you have put your email address of which the GCP is there. So it is created, and now this is the step where you are creating the static IP. So you just create a static IP and tell the kubeip these are the two static IPs. Please assign these IPs to the newly created nodes. So here we have to change the region. To get what's the region name, you can go back to external IPs and then just copy this region name. And here we're creating only two, because once you create a free account, you're eligible to create only two for some time. Yeah, now let's try to create a static IP. So to create a static IP, you have to just put your project ID here and the region of your cluster here. Okay, so you can just copy paste this one as I have already created it. So you can just create one static IP because there is a limit for it. So once you try to create one more, you just get a error telling that you are exceeded the quota. We are okay to use only one, but after some days I think they will extend your static IPs to 10 instead of 1. So that time you can create another 2. So once you have created a static IP, then you wanted to just update the label for it, so we know that this is belongs to kubeip. So let's update the label of the static IP. Yes, you have to, because it's just a beta version, so the updating a label, so we have to just install that. Yeah, once that is done, we are going to execute the set command, where we are just updating the cluster name. Now we have to update the pool name in the configuration. You no need to worry about these two files now, because you'll be confused. I don't want to explain. So once these are updated, we wanted to just deploy it to the Kubernetes cluster, right? So deploying is very easily using kubectl. Just apply -f and all the files under deploy.dot, right? So this is going to take both the files and deploys everything in the cluster. Now let's go back to the cluster and see what new node got added, right? You can see there's one new node which is creating still, but that is a kubeip under the kube system namespace, right? So let's wait for that to up and running. Yes, it is up and running now. If you want to see the logs, like which and all, for which node which static IP got assigned and stuff like that, you can just do kubectl logs, then insert, then -n, that's a namespace, kube system, right? Just to make sure if all the permission or everything is correct, right? Yeah, I mean, obviously it founds 3 nodes, but it is able to assign to only one replaced, because it doesn't have the other free address found. So that should be okay for us. Yeah, now you can see there's one static IP and this VM got allocated to it, right? That is great. Now you should be able to access any application using this IP. This IP doesn't change. If the VM changes, so this IP doesn't change. The kubeip will make sure that at least one node gets allocated to this IP, right? That is good, right? So in the next part, I am going to show you how to deploy very sample hello world application and able to access from outside anywhere from the internet, right? Till then, see you guys.